Hello guys, in this tutorial we're gonna be seeing how we can update the rows and the columns of the Pandas data frame. So the first thing you want to do is open up your code editor and import Pandas as PD. What this code does is that it imports Pandas and names it PD. So after you do that, you load up your data frame. In my case, I have created an example data frame. You can type it out here. So pause the video and get this running. So let's run these two code lines. As we can see, this data frame has 3 samples and 3 features. Samples and features mean rows and columns respectively. So let's say that we want to change the column names of this data frame. So we want to replace these 3 texts with other kind of texts. How can you do it? You can use df.columns equals a new list. So for example, let's name it name1, age, sex1. So let's replace the columns of the data frame with these 3 new names. Shift enter to run the code and boom, we've got the new columns of the data frame. There's another way to do this operation. You can use df.rename and for the argument columns, you will equal it with a new dictionary. One of the best things you can do with rename is that you can actually change only 1 or 2 or 3 of these column names. And you won't have to change all of them as we did here, because in this method you have to change all of them. So for example, let's say that we want to change name1 and name it name. So what you do is that you pass a dictionary with your current naming of the column and the new naming of the column. So if you run this code, the resulting data frame will have the new column. So it will change name1 and turn it into name. But make sure to understand this code by printing the data frame in a new way. So you can see that the original data frame has not changed. df.rename by default returns a new data frame and does not change the previous one in place. So if you want to change the data frame, what you want to do is call rename and also specify the argument in place equals to 1. So what it does, it changes the original object, the data frame, and does not, but it also returns that data frame as well. So if you run this code and again call df, you will see that you have changed the name1 back to name. So that's how you can change the names of the columns. Now let's see how we can manipulate some elements using rows. So for example, let's say that we want to replace this row, the row with index 2. So what you want to do is use the lock argument. So what you want to do is access the second index, the second index in the data frame. How you do it? df.lock2. If you want to see a lot more stuff about accessing elements, you need to see one of my previous tutorials on Pandas. Let's say that we want to change the third row with index 2 to a new one. We call df brackets 2 equals, in this case I will use a list and I will say arrow for the first element, age will be equal to 26, and I'm gonna be a male. So if you run this code and print the data frame, you see that the operation is done in place. .lock and .ilock do these transformations in place. And you can see that we replaced this row with this specified one using a list, and boom, we successfully manipulated the data frame. You can also do that for specific columns. So for example, if you have df.lock, you can also use a list to specify which of the columns you want to change. So we can specify using a list the column age and sex. So what this will do is go and replace the value specified by a list only for those 2 columns. So in our case, we have age1 and sex1, and we are going to be replacing the values of this row with index 2 and for only the age 1 and the sex 1 columns. So it's gonna be from 26 male, it will turn to 25 neutral. Let's check this out. Let's print the data frame. Boom! You just have a new data frame with a new information only for those two specified columns. Another way to do that, but only accessing a single pair of rows and columns, is the operation .add. So you can use .add, specify the index and specify the column. You can only specify one index and one column. However, with lock you can specify multiple columns or multiple indexes. So in this case, we want to change the age and we are gonna do it from 25 to 30. Let's print the data frame as well. Okay, so we got age 1 here. So let's run this again. And you can see here that we have age 1 equals to 30. Okay, so now we have an extra column that I'm gonna be dropping right now real quickly fast. And this is how you can drop, extra columns from your data frame. What you do is df.drop, specify the age, and then put the axis equals to 1 because it is a column, and also say in place equals true or 1. So the data frame will be manipulated in place. It will actually change the data frame object and return the data frame without age 1, sex 1, and name. So okay, I will be using. So what this does is. So what .drop does with in place equals true is that it changes the actual object, and boom, we removed the age column. Before we finish the tutorial, I want to show a very common error. So what is this common error? Let's say that, for example, you use some filter operation, like for example, df for the age column, we want only those which are equal to 30. For example, the final row will be true and the others will be false. So if you print out field, in this case, we will have false, false, true for each index. Then, if we want to filter out this specific column and also use age 1 and equal it to 27, what essentially we try to do here is set this value here, third index, third row, second index, age 1 column equals to 27. However, this will not run as expected. Python will throw an error that you try to set a copy without warning. The problem here is very simple. When you use only brackets, what you do is essentially try to access specific elements. So the return of this will be a copy of the data frame. It will not be the location in the actual data frame. So when you want to set new elements, you use .add, .lock, .idlock. You do not use only square brackets because this will change only the copy of the object. And as you can see, the original object here doesn't have the value 27 in the second index, third row, age 1 column. So this is a very usual error. What you want to do is use the lock function with field for the indexes, age for the column, and equal it to 27. This will run perfectly okay and will change the element. So again, I did the same mistake because in my examples I've used the age only. So let's run it again. And yeah, you see here that we have the value 27. Again, let's go and drop the age column that we do not need. And also let's go and rename all the other features because it's really tiring at the moment to turn every example back to the original. So sex 1 will be turned into sex, and again what you want to do is use in place equals true. Did I do a mistake? Yes, I do not need this line anymore, and let's use df to view the data frame. Boom, we are good to go. Again, before finishing up, use lock and iLock to change the data frame values. Don't use brackets because it is a copy of the object. Okay, so you use lock and iLock to change the data frame values.